I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining me once again on my channel on data engineering and data analytics. In this episode, we're returning to our Microsoft Access playlist where we're looking at the basic query types, and in this week we're going to cover the union query, which is a handy way of taking two data sets of the same type, stacking them on top of each other so that you get one big output. So without further ado, let's get to our union queries in Microsoft Access. Okay, so for this example, we're using the same file that we've used for many other examples, and I've filtered it down to our visit table that we created in an earlier episode, which basically just had some, visit information that you might have if you were some kind of doctor or something, I don't know. And I created another list that had different people in it and different visits. And what we want to accomplish is we want to put the two lists together. And that's essentially what a union query does. So we'll go to the Create tab and choose New Query Design, and you can close the pop-up that comes up. And then just drag on the tables that you want that are similar. You can just drag them onto there. We'll grab the first one and we'll choose all of the columns that we want. In this case, it'll be each column, and then you'll see if I just run that query, it's just the first table. It's the visit list. Now you could go and do this using the union up here. That's a new button, but you don't actually need to do it from there. We've started our union query, and so we can just switch to SQL view, and we can hand code it ourselves. So we'll take the semicolon off the end, and then I'm going to copy that whole statement just to save me a bunch of typing, and I'll copy that, and then what you do is you just drop down onto the next line and then type in union, and then type in your next query, which should have the same kind of fields in the same order, and then the Access will know to stack those on top of each other. And so what we want is we want to take the data from the other table, and so we're going to take our and adjust the table names in the second part of the query to point to our other table, because we want to have a union of all the items from one table with union together with the items from the second table. And so we'll change the name of the table from one to the other. We'll put our semicolon back on the end, and then you can see here we've got all of our selections from our visit table, and then we've got our union, and we've got all of the selections from our second table. And when we go ahead and run this one, we should see a list of all of the items from both tables. And one thing to note is that union will typically, if they're two exactly the same rows, it will combine them into one. So watch out for that. But you'll see we do have two ID 1s because there's an ID 1 in both tables, but we have all of the items, all 17, from both tables. And that's exactly what we wanted to see in our query output. And we can go back to our SQL statement, and we could say order it. And one thing to note when you put an order statement in is or order clause in, is that you won't put in the name of the table, because obviously you're selecting from multiple tables. But if you have the same name, the same name between both of the queries or select statements, then you're totally fine to just put in the name for your sorting. And so by doing all this, you can see you can create your union between your two data source tables there, source tables, and you can order them the way that you want. And But you could also, if you wanted to, you could continue adding other ones if you had multiple if you had multiple tables, more than two. You could put in union, another table, and it would basically put all of those together for you. But we're not going to do that today, so I'll back out of that and fix our query here to our original, and you can see that one runs nicely, and I'll save it. I'll save our query, and then we can move on to our next example, which is a little more complicated, but which is closer to what you might actually see in the real world when you're dealing with lots of data and stuff, which is the case where you make two queries, but you want to put the queries together in a union, which you can also do, and that's very, very handy. Particularly if you have a very difficult query and there's two versions of it and you want to union those, you can absolutely do that. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll put our table in, and this time I'm just going to select all, so that's the visit.star, and we're going to get all of the people who have a mood of happy. So we're going to get all of the happy people from both queries, and we'll union those together. So we'll call this visit happy, and that's just a select query. So now I can close that if I wanted to. I can just double click visit happy, and it'll always give me all of the happy people from the first data set, which is the visit data set. But what we might want to do is we also might want to include the happy people from the other data set. And so we can do the same thing. We can choose select star, click off the show in the down in the grid there, and then type in your criteria, and you can we'll call this one, we'll save it and call it other visit happy. And so now we have happy lists from both data sets. One in this case only has a couple in it. It could be two, it could be 20,000, it doesn't matter. We can go ahead and create our union query, which is going to be putting those two together. And so there we go. We started a design. This is our first query that we did, visit happy. You can see I opened it on a new tab just to show. And then I'll drag it over here just so you can see that we're going to do a similar thing to what we did last time. Now, if I select everything from that one, it's going to pre-populate that SQL for me, which is what I want. And then just like last time, I can remove the semicolon, I can type in union, and then copy and paste the query from up above, and then just change it in the way that I want to change it. So for this case, it will be select other visit happy, which is the second query that we made. So now we're joining two different queries, and we're selecting all the fields because we know that all the fields are the same types. And so we've got both of those. If I open, there's the two from the other visit happy, the two rows that we expect to see. And so I'll put a semicolon on the end of that one. And you can see here we are selecting everything just as I said, and we can see how this one looks. So there we go. We've got all of the happy selections between both of those queries that we made, and we unioned the two queries together, and that's a very handy way of doing it. So we can go ahead and we can name our query. We'll save it, and we'll call it visit union happy, and you can see that now we have our two unions. You can see it's the little interconnected circles for the icons. We've got our visit union happy and our first visit union query, which is the first one we did. And that is how you do union queries in Microsoft Access. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion on how to use union queries in Microsoft Access. If you like what you saw today, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet, and click the bell when you see the bell. And if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below. Have a great day, have a safe day, and I'll catch you next time.